Hey guys, as you know, we love our beaded watch straps. This is the usual type that we make, so we decided to make a different design that turns our bracelet straps into a sliding knot bracelet. This is our design here with our sliding knot at the back and two separate straps that we've connected. It's a really simple design and makes it super easy to swap these beaded straps on and off your smartwatch and adjust it depending on what you're wearing on the day. For this design, we do need some beads that have a bigger hole. We're using a 1mm thread, so our beads need to have a hole big enough to fit that thread through 2 times. So we make each strap individually, then we work our way down the strap, slowly making it come from bigger to smaller, and then you can attach it onto your smartwatch. Now we've got our 2 Apple Watch connectors here. When you're buying these, just search for whatever type of smartwatch you've got, making sure to get the right type. Now we're using a nice sturdy 1mm thread. We start by placing our ends together and following it back down to the middle. Now this loop in the middle here, we're going to place it down our watch connector, bring it around and bringing those cords through the loop, pulling that nice and tight for a lark's head knot. Now we're going to work our way along our connector with a few more lark's head knots. So just grabbing one of our cords here, we do 2 halves of the knot. So the first half, we take the end down the knot, leaving a little loop there, bringing our cord up the loop. Now the second half of our lark's head knot, we take the end up the connector, leaving that little loop there and taking the end down the loop. So that's another full lark's head knot. The loop should be coming around at the front. Now just make sure your cords are all pulled nice and tight, and we're going to go for another knot. So the first half of the knot, we place it down the connector, pulling it up that loop, pulling that down tight, and then the second half of our knot, we place it up the connector and place it down the loop. Now depending on the size of your connector, you might want 3 or 4 knots here. It depends on the size of your thread as well. So just pull it all nice and tight and then you'll see if you need to do any more knots. Mine does need at least 1 more knot. So I'm going to work from the left side as well, just to use this side of cord. So placing that down the connector, bringing the end up through the loop, then bringing the end up the connector and down through that loop. So making sure all the cords are pulled nice and tight. Now I think 4 lark's head knots is the right number for my connectors. Now we can start placing our beads on. So just placing a few beads onto one of our cords and bringing them up near the top to see how they fit on your strap. So you don't want them too big or too small, you sort of want them about the same size as the lark's head knots. This is why I like to have a couple of different sizes of beads. So 3 of these white beads would have been too many, 2 is not enough. So I've just taken one off and I'm going to place 1 silver bead in the middle and just try that again. So that is a much better size there. See how it's sitting about the same size as the lark's head knots. Once you're happy with this layer of beads, then take the other thread. Might be a little bit harder to get it through the beads this way, so I find just cutting the end and sometimes melting it or placing a little bit of glue and letting that dry. Sometimes it helps to thread through the tiny bead holes. So taking this other thread through the beads as well, back through the other way. Gently working your way through all these beads. And then you can pull both ends to pull those beads up to the top of your strap. Just keep working with your threads, making sure everything's pulled nice and tight and sitting nicely how you want it before you move forward. Now we're back to placing some more beads onto one thread and then bringing the other thread through all the beads. So it's up to you how fast you want to drop this size down from bigger to smaller. I like to do a few bigger ones on this top end and then sort of work it down smaller at the other end. So this is the exact same beads again, one big white one, then a silver one in the middle and another white one. And then probably on the next layer, I'll go down to just 2 beads. Once your beads are on, pulling both ends to pull those beads up near the top. Now we just continue down our strap, making it slightly smaller as we go. And both straps need to be about 7 centimeters long. So we're just going to continue down until that point. Once I've done a few layers with 2 beads, I'll also do a couple with 1 bead as well, just to make it look more like a bracelet when it comes down to that point. Once you've made your 2 straps exactly the same, then I find the easiest thing to do is actually just try it on and see how it's going for size. So placing them on, you can measure them if you know your wrist measurement. I also find it's helpful to actually try it on and just see. You want to leave about 1 centimeter in the middle for the sliding knot. So I need a little bit more length. I'll place 1 more white bead onto one side, and then I actually just like to place 1 bead onto both threads, so putting both threads through the same way. I'm just using one of my smaller silver beads here. And this sort of pulls those threads together so that it's going to sit nicely for your sliding knot. Making sure that your threads are pulled nice and tight into the right position and all your beads are sitting nicely. Now placing my silver bead through both threads on this end as well. Making sure those beads are sitting nicely and we've got both threads coming off the ends. Again, just trying it on, making sure they're sitting pretty close together with just a small amount between the 2 beads. Now we can tie a little sliding knot in the center here onto both cords. So bringing those ends around and overlapping them on the right hand side here, this is where we're going to tie our sliding knot. I think it's easier if I take them off the watch at this point. So overlapping our cords here, now with our 40 centimeter piece of thread, we place it underneath in the middle here. Now we bring the left side end around across to the right, leaving a little loop here on the left hand side. Now we bring the right side end down over this other cord and gently pass it underneath to come up that loop on the left hand side. Pulling both ends tight. Now we alternate each stitch. So now it's up to a right side stitch. So now we bring the right side cord around across to the left, leaving our small loop. Left side cord comes down over this cord and underneath to come up that loop on the right hand side. Pulling both ends tight. Now we continue alternating each stitch until you're happy with the size of your sliding square knot. You do want to pull each knot quite tight in between so that it holds your watch strap nice and secure when you're wearing it. Once you're happy with the size of your sliding knot in the middle here, then we can cut the cords off on each side and fuse with a lighter, gently melting and tapping to fuse it onto the knot. Now your little sliding knot in the center should slide along the other cords. Now I like to place my straps onto the smartwatch and just try it on for size. So just making sure you're happy with the way it's sitting and the size and everything. If you are happy with it, then all that's left is to tie some simple knots onto each set of cords, making sure they're nice and even on both ends. Now you can cut those ends off just outside the knots and cinch with a lighter so they don't fray. So there's your beautiful beaded smartwatch straps.